Rise and fall.
We're rolling.
Okay, and
Action.
Okay. Here we are, episode number 4, the best looking episode so far, hopefully, of the Rise and Fall. Chip is helping film this one. He also helped with the first one with Selema. He probably doesn't want me to actually admit that, but the idea is we're constantly improving. We're still on the rise of this podcast. Today, Rob Morrow, legendary professional snowboarder who also started a snowboard company after his pro snowboard career was started. We're up here at the lodge. We've got the best snow of the year today. I got a little extra color here. Rob was out there today, ran into big smiles. It's what we do.
Rare sunshine.
What board were you riding today?
Custom cut, random.
Right. Clark foam, yes.
Foam, yes.
Still making shit. Still making your own shit.
No edges, but yeah. So, low tech.
All right, we're going to talk about Morrow. This is really exciting for me because when I was coming up, like Morrow was a really big brand. I'm trying to even think, and I'm going to put you on the spot a couple of times, but like there was like Sims and there was Barfoot and there was Burton, and then it was like more brands kind of started, and it feels to me in my memory, and you're probably going to correct me, maybe there was Hazmat, maybe, but there was maybe like a couple, but it seems like Morrow was kind of the first of the second wave, really? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Right in that zone. I think it was a transition period for sure. I mean, you had Sims and Barfoot. I mean, Sims and Burton were obviously the biggest.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, and that's what we called it too. We did call it second wave. It felt like it.
It's pretty rad.
It was rad. That was the best time in snowboarding, actually.
So just backing up real quick. First, when did you first ride a snowboard? And what snowboard was it?
Well, the first time I rode a snowboard, my friend Greg Lafke, he had a Burton competition performer.
Yeah.
And that was like at the end of '84.
Where?
And at Mount Hood. I took one run, that was it. And it was horrible. It was fun, but it was horrible. But I did get and the next season I did get a performer elite, no high backs, before high backs. And that was challenging. And then the same year I got my first Sims 1500 FE, and then the world was opened to slashing.
So you fell in love with the sport, fell in love with the lifestyle, going up to the hill, being a kid in rural Oregon. And you started becoming kind of a pro snowboarder. You started being like, there weren't many then, but you were entering competitions, enjoying that side of the whole thing.
It's weird to think back because it's like it was so quick. I mean, I started snowboarding in whatever it was, 85, right? And in 85, I also was the first year I went to the national championships in Vermont, which is basically like the U.S. Open. And this is the first year I was snowboarding, and I went to the World Championships. This is the first freaking year.
The competition is a little more.
So it's that they'll just take anybody that would show up.
Great.
So I was in it though, but yeah. As a junior, they had junior categories, and
all right.
So I went to Vermont. I met Tom Sims. I met Jake Burton. I met Mark Heingartner, Coughlin, Palmer, Terry. All these people were there. It's crazy.
It's wild.
It's rad.
So you're cranking along, and so if I get it right, in '89 you started making your own snowboards.
Yeah.
Like, so you were really only 4 years into it, 5 years into it.
I rode for Sims.
So you rode for Sims for 3 years.
Yeah. So I rode for Sims for 3 years. I hooked up. I did good. I basically did good at Mount Baker. Mm-hmm. I got like 4th. It was like, and I was like 15 years old.
How many people were in the Banks Hall in that?
How many?
It wasn't a lottery to get in.
Oh, no. It was going down the canyon or whatever. Not the canyon, but
the ditch.
Yeah, the crazy part, right? And yeah. So
okay.
Yeah. Anyway, it was good. And then yeah. So once my contract was over with Sims, I was just farting around with stuff. I was always modifying my bindings, and I was making some base plates and just doing some stuff. I always wanted to make my own board. I kind of like made drawings, and I tried to make a mold way back in like probably like the end of '85. I took I stripped an old surfboard down as like an old brewer, and I stripped the fiberglass off it. I shaped this board. It's called a Morsky. So dumb. And it's like, it looked like a Volcom stone almost. This shape was like super funny, super long nose.
A Morski.
Morski.
Do you still have it?
The Morski, no. So I was making the mold.
Yeah.
And then the part stuck when I was trying to make the mold off of the master. It all stuck to it, and it just a total shit show. It didn't work.
Yeah.
So that postponed my whole making about my first board was postponed until like '89, and then we started messing around there.
Wow.
So, and it was basically, so that was kind of the start of it, and it just took forever. And at that point, it was like it's basically like an experiment. My dad and my cousin was an engineering student, and it was basically like we had this opportunity to teach the kids how to run a business. And we had this interest, we had this I was a pro snowboarder, I have these designs, and he has some engineering background, and the whole family was in manufacturing. So it's like, hey, let's teach these guys how to like do something with their life. So that's kind of like the start of it. So
wow. So you started Morrow Snowboards really by trying to help other people learn how to start a business.
Well, the other person was me.
But your dad and your cousin, and
yeah. So it was like, yeah, it was just all of us together. Dads were trying to teach us. And so it's crazy. I mean, it was a cool opportunity, and it could have just been a flop. And but it started to work out eventually.
All right, well, let's get into it. So you're starting to make molds, trying things out. You got your dad and your cousin helping you. You got some other people maybe getting interested in helping you out, and then all of a sudden you have like a moment where you're like, I think I'm gonna like be like Sims or like start a brand. Like, you remember that moment? Was it like, did it happen organically, or were you kind of like?
It was kind of like I was thinking about making some binding stuff. That seemed like a pretty easy step.
Yeah.
And I think the conversation between all of us was like, why don't we just make boards? And it was like, okay, let's just do it. I mean, it's really that simple. It's like, okay, let's just go for it. And then so we just started researching, and
but those boards were composite boards originally, or did you have wood boards?
Yeah, I'll kind of tell you a little bit about
this. Is the interest. This is the
well, yeah. I mean, it's a weird path we went down, and not that many people really realize that all of our boards were foam core boards, not like the cheesy like rim injected foam. And most people don't even know what rim injection is. But
well, hit us. Let's give it a little history lesson. Rim injected boards.
Well, rim injected was they used rim injection is it's basically like taking 2 sheets of fiberglass and squirting a foam plastic in the middle of it, and it's supposed to represent a piece of wood, and that gives you like some strength and some structure, and that's your board. Right. It's super heavy. It's like squirting a bunch of plastic in there, but it's a really high
example of
it's
rim,
a high
rim injected boards.
I mean, like,
go ahead. Those guys
like
are
all the ride boards and stuff.
Right.
I mean, they probably made some good ones at some point, but those were all rim injected, a bunch of them. So there's the foam ones, and then there's the rim injected wood ones. So then another version is where you take a piece of 2 pieces of fiberglass that's pre-cured, and then you take a piece of wood and you throw it in the middle. And the wood is like just floating in there, like a hot dog in a hallway. And then you just squirt it with like plastic, and the plastic fills in all the gaps. And then now you have this piece of crap. It's got wood in it. You call it a wood core, but it's a piece of crap wood core. It's just
it's just wood in the core.
It's wood in it, and it's just a bunch of plastic they squirt.
And these things you can just set up a mold and just run it.
But there's some rad boards like that too. I mean, there were some rad boards that people tore up those boards too. Right. So it wasn't like it was all for nothing. I mean, there's some good boards out there. But we hired this consultant, and we talked to him. We snuck into the gyrator. Remember the gyrator?
Oh, yeah.
K2 gyrator. Yeah. They built that at Conley. At
Conley water skis. Yeah.
Water skis, yeah. And so we just wandered onto the Conley water ski site. We just drove up to Washington. We wander in there, and we're just walking around in the place. Oh yeah, and we're just hanging out, watching them build these things. Nobody's even bugging us. They put us, and it's kind of a cool thing. It's kind of a production thing, but it wasn't. It was a pretty low. It was a torsion box. It was a foam core. Is what we ended up building. It was kind of a real simple version of it. Don't think it's nearly the kind of the direction we took it. It's a real simple version of it, but it's kind of had the same kind of a construction. Yeah. So we did that, and K2. I don't know if they still do, but they gave tours in their factory. I went up and took tours in there too. Just some bystanders just going through their factory. You can see all this stuff. Go out back, look at the barrels of resin they have. So we're just espionage,
Yeah, well, why not?
Yeah, they're doing tours. So anyway, we're doing all this and we're trying to figure out, we're making molds. We bought this old mold or a press. We bought a hydraulic press from Olin Skis.
Holy shit.
And we shipped it out from Connecticut or something. And then we had to get it. We had to widen it with some big steel plates and all this stuff. And it had hydraulics and we ended up building boards different, but that was our first one. We had a hydraulic press and we just made all the molds out of wood and shaped the profiles, and we had to make the foam cores. We blew them out of urethane foam, kind of a lightweight foam. And then we basically wrapped these things with fiberglass and made a torsion box. And the torsion box, it's just giving you the shape, and then you have this torsion box. It's like a composite. It's like a fishing rod to some degree, right? It's
like different.
It has this. Yeah, it's this composite that has all this snap to it, and
that was cutting it.
And it was different.
You were writing that story while you were doing it.
Yeah,
nobody else in snowboarding was doing that.
Well, the gyrator was built like that, but the ski industry has they have torsion boxes, and torsion box can even be around a wood core, or anything.
But as snowboarding progressed, it was kind of like a piece of wood that was kind of like a water ski, and then Jake started making his thing, and Tom started making his thing, and they were like horizontal laminate, like like that plywood, right? Plywood,
high grade.
So
plywood.
You were the first guy to kind of come in, and potentially, it's not that it matters if you were, but like you were like, I think we could build this like this water ski, like
we were building something different, yeah.
So and here's the thing with this podcast, I try to get it done in under 40 minutes because that's how long it takes me to get up to the lodge on a snowmobile. So if I push, it's only because I don't want to sit out here freezing with this headphone.
I just have one point though.
I want you to keep going.
So the one point is this, that we went down this path because it seemed fun and it was really interesting and it's kind of high tech and it's kind of neat, but it made it so freaking hard to be successful not making wood cores. And to make a wood core is so easy. You just take these components, you epoxy them up, you got a wood core, and you smash them together, and it's a cakewalk. It's like the easiest thing. And we went down, it was so hard to do what we did. It was, I don't know what was wrong with us, but it kind of shaped a lot of things we did in the future. But anyway, we started this thing. We made this board called the Blaze, and it was designed for just a one board quiver. You have this.
Your old one's hanging on the wall.
It's hanging on the wall. Yeah, broken one on your wall.
Yeah,
I broke it.
It made it till last few years ago. Yeah,
I broke it 30 years after it was made.
Sick.
Right here.
Yeah. I'm pretty proud. Come to Baldface to see it on the wall there.
Yeah. So, but huge nose, kind of a shorter tail with a flip on it, and
a little bit of this kind of shape vibe.
Called
out the tail.
Oh yeah, it has like a tiny bit of camber. It's got like early rise and like a little rocker in the tail. I mean, it's kind of like what a lot of boards are made like now, to tell you the truth.
All right, so you're cranking along, and we're gonna kind of just now. You got Morrow. You got your identity is that you're making these composite boards. You got, and all of a sudden now let's talk about like someone walks in and says, "I'd like to buy a bunch of these snowboards." Was it a distributor? Were you selling them straight to shops? Was it like some foreign thing? Like what? How did all that come together? You remember?
Yeah, I mean, we would try to solicit shops and stuff, but we would also sell them straight from the shop. And like, our little gimmick was we would have like a little spot in the bottom where you could like put your name in it. Right.
Okay.
And so people could customize it, put their name in it. And it was funny because the first one, the first custom board we ever sold had a little window in it, and somebody wanted it to say Snowboard Wit Turd. I don't know if you know Wit Turd. Wit Turd is like somebody that smokes weed and they're just like,
well, there's Witware. Yeah. For
yeah.
Sure.
Well, Witware comes from the Northwest. That's the Wits. It used to be called Wits, was weed. And so that was the first one somebody actually bought, was Snowboard Wit Turd. Yeah. So
what kind of window? I mean, I know I'm trying to go fast, but how did you put a window?
Well, there wasn't a window. So like, imagine this has white ink behind it, right?
Yeah.
So we just left a spot there where it's open. And
so before you pressed it.
So we'd epoxy like somebody's print name in there and then cover it with some white
because
epoxy.
They buy like 5 snowboards. You're like, yeah, we can do this.
They'd buy one.
Yeah.
One snowboard. Yeah. And so anyway, but and so that was the Blaze though. And we got through that year. We made, I don't even know how many we made. Let's just call it 250 boards or something. And there's different versions throughout the year too. There's some that have a pointy nose, some that have a chopped off nose. We're kind of in that era where I always wanted to have a pointy nose board because I love that I just always loved that.
Looking down at it.
Yeah. And so, but the noses were kind of changing and stuff. And mid-year we chopped the nose off. And then mid-year we came out with this other board called the Tremor. It's like a small version for someone small.
Go tell them to shut the fuck up upstairs.
They're watching the movie.
What movie are they watching?
Oh, it's
it's ride days.
It's the day.
Oh, is it the day? Is it that time already?
Yeah.
All right. So we're in the lodge. They're doing the daily thing. It'll only go on for another 10 minutes. It's like a big thing upstairs. This is part of the thing of doing it at the lodge. Can't tell what this thing tells. Anyways.
Yeah, we'll see.
Let's not get distracted. I'm really sorry.
So that's the first year, but I don't want to just take over. You can ask me any question you want, but
I could go for 3 hours.
Then we go. So, but then there's like a big transition, huge transition, and because that was the first year, we're trying to sell stuff. It's a struggle, and we're just total nerds trying to sell this stuff. It's like we don't even know what we're doing. But we're trying, and so Sims was having problems, Sims and Vision, and Sims always had trouble with, he tried to sell the company and then he had to take it back, and he tried to work with Vision, and then Vision screwed everything up. But there was there's great times in there, but anyway, this all came to a head, and Sims had major problems going down. So people were leaving Sims, and that was the turning point. So, we had, do you know Scott Klum? Scott Klum. Yeah. Scott Klum came from Sims. He did some of these old graphics on the switchblades and all that kind of stuff,
Right.
He came and to do our graphics. Brad Stewart came to do the marketing. Mickey Keller came to do all kinds of stuff. So there's these people that came from Sims, and then with that, we started getting writers from Sims as well, and we weren't poaching. It's just like there was opportunity that came for this, and it was like this new phase. And
who are those writers?
And you got like Tucker Franson, and obviously Todd, Mario Paulo Dabini. At the time Mario was
Todd. Who's Todd?
Todd. He's this funny guy.
Franson.
He has this. We had a Todd Franson too, and a Tucker Franson.
Yeah.
And Noah Brandon.
Noah Brandon was just out.
Was he? Yeah.
State. Yeah.
He just called me. I was in the cat, and he called me. He's moving right down by me, so it's kind of cool. Anyway, so it's something. Yeah.
This is what
we're not at a rave, right?
We're in a downstairs of a club.
So anyway, there's a bunch more. There's heaps of other writers, but it was just like, it was sick. We just all of a sudden we're just like becoming real, and then we put out this line that had different categories of boards and all different sizes, and it was legit,
Yeah.
And the marketing go behind it, and the image, and it's just the feel and the camaraderie.
So what were the numbers like then? All of a sudden you're making like 5 snowboards with Whitturd on the bottom.
Yeah.
And then in 2 years you're making.
So then this is year 2.
Yeah.
So year 2, I don't know, we're probably making a couple thousand boards or something.
And you're doing that, or you got some people working the presses? You hire some people?
Oh no, we're making everything.
So then next year it's going to.
So
because at some point it just,
yeah. So the next 2 years are pretty. They seemed like the same era, right? We came in. We had multi pros, free pros, axi pros. These are some of the boards, and
the multi pro was the board.
It was.
Dylan Farr was riding one of those.
Really?
He rode one with hard boots for a while.
Yeah, the free pro and
free pro. Yeah,
the free pro was more freestyle, a little sharper side cut.
Yeah,
and these are big side cuts. These they're not. It's not what we use these days.
No.
But they were transitioning. From.
Well, then it was about going to Squaw or Palisades now, and getting a board up on edge and just staying there as long as you possibly could. The longest, most drawn out follow 8 turns of all time.
And they traverse awesome too. A straight edge board it traverses killer too. But I kind of like I kind of miss them. Sometimes it's kind of nice having a big side cut, but it's hard to ride, so nobody wants to do that these days. Yeah, well, so I don't know the numbers, but let's just say we got up over 10,000 in the a year.
And so you're running shifts, you got employees. It's
we're running. I think most of the time we ran one shift back in those days. We had a little shop that was awesome. We were butted right up in our backyard. Was this? It's not really a junkyard. It was like a scrap yard, and it had things old airplanes and just the craziest stuff. And we would go out there and like, like Clum or whoever they would collect things out there and they become part of our marketing things. And they would, and all these things would just become part of the company, and it's just hilarious.
It's creative crap.
Yeah, awesome. It was really cool. And the artwork was just awesome. It was off the hook. And so anyway, and then we just keep growing. Eventually we get to the point where we're, Todd Richards has pro model and we have tons of riders. We're starting to make bindings and just all the things, soft goods and stuff like that. Boots, yeah, we did boots. We actually did a pretty good job in the boots in the beginning. I mean, they all suck by today's standard, but I mean, the one thing we had early on was like an internal lacing system, the inside of the boot that was, I mean, that's like game changer.
I think I had a pair of Morrow boots back in the day.
Oh,
they were they were soft. They were soft, but they were really good.
They're probably heavy and stuff, but
they had funny shape on the sole.
Yeah,
I remember they were kind of super round.
Okay, that was later on. Yeah.
Oh, was it later on?
Oh, those are wacky. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they were
on sale.
They were designed to be like, absolutely as short as it can be in the heel. You didn't have like a big heel sticking out. You're gonna drag and screw yourself.
I bought the boots for big guys, but I have a size 8 foot. It made no sense. Anyways, enough about me. All right, so Morrow is like killing it. We said we wanted something to be kind of weird in this interview. Like we got a rave upstairs right now at 6:00 in the afternoon. Anyways, so let's just say you're getting to the point where the brand is growing, your 10,000 boards. All of a sudden, the world starts snowboarding, late 90s. And like Japan starts getting heavily involved. Seems like that's a big part of a lot of the stories of the rise of a lot of companies in that time where the big orders started coming in from Japan. Stores in America were kind of like, we called it gray marketing boards over to foreign people. Distributors started knocking at the door. I know it like Crap and Glissade, all of a sudden in one year, we all of a sudden got a Swiss distributor, a South American distributor, a Japanese. It was like, oh God, this is exploding right now. Is that what it was? Was that your experience?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, the like Hasi in Japan, that was like a big deal, and they would take the stuff, pretty early. I mean, that would finance us
for all of everything else.
And there was all kinds of other things we did to finance too. I mean, we'd move the boards from one warehouse into some other secret little place and be like, oh, yeah, we shipped them. Okay, we can borrow against that money now. All kinds of shady stuff like that.
Yeah. But, entrepreneur.
So, but anyway, and we just were growing too. Like, it started out just like me and Neil. Neil's my cousin. That's, we're both the same age. And so we were kind of engineering all this stuff together. And then we had the dads that were, Ray, my dad's Bob, and then Ray is Neil's dad. But they were kind of more on the business side. And at some point, once it started getting big, my dad kind of stepped out. He does other stuff that he likes to do startups, and then he kind of stepped out to some degree. But he was instrumental in the beginning of getting a lot of things figured out, and production up and going. And so anyway, yeah, we were getting a lot bigger, and we were getting a lot of sales going to Japan. And I wouldn't say we got a ton go to Canada, but a little bit. And part of Neil's dad, Ray, had taken a company public before and raised tons of money that way. And so he always had this dream of taking us public. Oh. And at some point, Ride went public, and they were off the hook. I mean, they just went off the hook. I mean, everybody knew who Ride was. People that didn't snowboard, it's just whatever.
$3 a share. It opened, I remember.
Who did it?
Oh, it's $3 a share.
So yeah. So that became a goal, I guess, for us. Maybe not for everybody, but it was something.
It was like an exit. It was like an opportunity to hand over the business reins to some other people that might.
Or just to go off and just have money to like do some rad stuff,
Yeah.
So,
what year was that?
Oh gosh.
Turn of the century. 2000.
I forget. I think it was 1990.
Late.
1995, maybe. Let's call it 95.
Was it that early? Because I thought Ride didn't go public till later than that. Maybe I should do some research. Anyways, doesn't really matter, I guess.
I think it was maybe about 95 or 96.
You'd know better than I was. I was just fucking.
Because we didn't last that much longer after that.
Okay, so all right, so Let's just, what's the peak? Like, what's the
So
what's
the
the,
peak-
the
so, yeah,
rise?
I mean,
What's the peak?
yeah.
In your opinion,
Get us up to like 1996.
right,
You
so
got
1996.
let's just call it there. I mean, like Todd Richards, he's like the favorite. He's going to the Olympics, and he's on our team. And we got tons of other killer people too. I don't want to just like focus on one person, but like that's pretty rad. The Olympics is a huge deal. We're a public company. We've raised all this money, and we've been injected with all this money, and we have all these people. We have everyone we need in the company, and we even have art department within the company. Even Trevor Graves ended up being a part of it with the art department as well. So there's a lot of people came in from the snowboard industry, and
Morrow's the shit.
but
Like it was a cool brand.
So I mean, at that point, I think Burton was obviously the biggest, and Sims had kind of dropped off in those years, quite a bit. K2 was huge, and I don't know exactly what year, but basically, I think us and K2 were basically about the same at some point, kind of like right there, neck and neck for number 2.
Yeah.
And so we probably made like over 100,000 boards a year, a ton of boards. I mean, there's like, you're doing like 2 or 3 shifts, tons of presses and molds, and people just laying up. I mean, these are wet layups.
You have reps all over the place, riders all over the place.
We're buying materials, we're sourcing our own materials and processing them. So we're not just like buying everything and putting it together. We're actually like some of them ABS stuff. We're like having extruded, and we're like, texturing it and treating it so that for the sticking and stuff like that. You get flame treated or corona treated. Different processes for making these things stick together. And then anyway, just all the CNC stuff for cutting out fiberglass and pores and sublimation. So I mean, there's a ton of stuff going on, and so there's a lot of support that goes into this factory. I mean, it's a huge factory. I mean, it was really large. I mean, and it's kind of overwhelming. And that it's just funny. The story I was just telling you a minute ago is this. They would get so mad at me because I'd be out there in the middle of the night and I'd go out and I'd be like making things in the sublimation presses, and I'd be running fabric through it to I'm making shirts so I can go to a trade show, or I'm back in the back shop making some custom molds, or taking the production tools and making some prototypes. And they come in the morning, they're like, what freaking Rob, what are you doing? And I'm at home sleeping in at that point. Right? Yeah. And so it's just,
because you're into that.
But it's nighttime. Yeah. You have those mad scientist kind of like moments, and you got to roll with it, And so anyway, so it's fun, and then just to jump backwards a little bit, like the construction, we talked about the torsion box. So we kept developing this construction, and the torsion box is like this. It's a box of fiberglass, and so eventually we started adding carbon to it and things like that. And then back in the earlier years, we started doing we had rails. I don't know if you remember the rails that they stuck up. Yep. So we took these cores and we'd cut the rails about an inch off the side of the board, and we would take that and we would wrap it with these like fiberglass and carbon fiber socks, and make this, let's just call it like a fishing rod kind of thing, right on the side of the board, to make it extra springy and super strong right on the edge. And then so we'd put this on there, we'd reattach it to the board, to the core, and then we'd wrap it again in another torsion box. So we'd do these rails, and it just made this thing super lively, and these boards start coming to life, and they're just and then we just kept going with it. We went there, we'd cut another section off, and we would do 2 of them and then 3 of them, and you'd have all these different densities of all these fiberglass. This, maybe on the edge it's wrapped like 3 times, and then it's 2 times, then 1 time. So you have all these different layers, and it's, you can make a board that's like a really beginner board, or you can make a board that's super aggressive, where you got to be like on rail, you can't be messing around. So it made the ability to do all this stuff. And at the same time, we're doing all this tech stuff. People did give a crap, but it's really hard to convince them that this is the way to go, because they want a wood core board, And we put so much effort into it's just like talking till we're blue in the face.
Right.
So, but we were being successful, even though we had that against us. And so there was some OEM stuff too. Like we made one of the original Joyride boards and some stuff like that. And anyway,
So then,
okay, we went public. We got all this money. Now should we go into the downfall?
yeah, let's
Okay.
talk about it.
So I mean, the big factory, there's always lots of problems. I mean, there's certain boards might have certain issues. So there's maybe a quality problem with this board. Say there's a tip delam or this that. There's stuff like that, but I think that's pretty minor. I think all in all, we had a good product. But really, you got to that. You kind of mentioned there's that point when people started selling direct, or they started taking the board production to China or somewhere else. They're taking it elsewhere. And at that point, it just got a little bit rougher. And also the other thing we did, I guess I left out, is that we ended up purchasing West Beach. And because did you know that?
Maybe you're just reminding me, but I'm just,
yeah.
wow.
So there was a point in time when like Burton supplied everybody. They said, like, Burton was like, we got our boards, our bindings, we got red, we got all these things. Anything you need, you get from us. And so the dealers wanted that from someone else also. So we were like, okay, we're going to purchase West Beach. Now we'll have the clothing side of it. We got hard goods, and we're just kind of being this one-stop shop kind of thing.
That makes sense.
So, and then, but the whole timing of it, we were so injected with all this money. I think we felt we could do anything,
Yeah.
And then on top of it, we had team riders that were making a lot of money. And, and we had all this Olympic stuff coming up.
So just to boil it down, the downfall is because you were paying Todd Richards too much money.
No.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for coming in.
Fucking Todd,
Great talk, man.
Yeah.
Todd, God.
No.
Seriously.
No, Todd got the shaft, because Todd.
Okay, never mind.
There was a point in time when Todd wasn't getting paid, so Todd got the shaft.
We love
Todd. But I feel bad for it.
Oh, yeah, he's driving an Audi. He's doing all right.
Yeah,
he's
okay.
got a podcast. He's probably
got a podcast.
He's killing it. Right?
Yeah.
In his
Anybody
garage.
that has a podcast is really
Dude, if you have a
great.
podcast these days, you're basically
you got it made.
Yeah, it's good.
So
it's good.
Anyway, the market was kind of like the market was shrinking at some point, right? And the problem is that I think that we wanted to weather the storm and just wait for it to re-spike, and I think it wasn't. And I think that we had the company to a point where everyone was so specialized in each portion of their job that people weren't cross-trained enough to just say, okay, and we didn't downsize quick enough, and we were spending money. We were developing step-in stuff, and we were spending, lots of money in our factory and team riders, and everything just, was fine until the market was just selling less boards, and then it wasn't enough to support us. So then now we started to have some financial problems, and we already had raised all this money through the public offering, right? The IPO. And so we had that money, but eventually we started running out of the money, right? Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, that's kind of where we started losing our abilities. And then you start making bad choices because you're making them based on money decisions.
Right.
And then, there was other things too. I mean, we went public, and there was points in time. We had some great people. Like we had this guy Callip, who came in. He was a great president, and because I was president for a long time, and then I at some point I had to like step down, because like when you go public, like you don't have some kid that can't even brush his hair, like as the president of the company, right? Yeah. So, but there's some other people that kind of didn't get it. Also, they kind of weren't as committed to the product and things like that. So there was some weird times in there where there was people that weren't the right fit. So, but ultimately we just kind of rode it out and kept riding it out and kept waiting for it to come back. And the market just kind of turned and just went that other direction. And we were too slow to react. We were too big and too slow to react and come out of it. And so eventually we just started slowly running out of money, to the point of where we were basically needed to just sell the brand. Right. And then, so we put it up, we put the word out there, we were for sale, and K2 was interested. K2 came in and bought the brand. They didn't. I mean,
they kind of made boards for a while, didn't they?
They did. So they made, they made our boards for.
And they kept making them foam boards.
They tried,
but they didn't do it.
They tried.
Right.
They tried. I mean, they tried for. I think I don't know if they made them for 1 or 2 years.
Right.
And maybe just one.
But they went through a heap of changes.
It
right
was
then too.
Yeah. I mean, there's. I can't. I mean, the boards weren't as good. The ones they made weren't as good as the ones because they didn't take all our tooling and take it up there and build them.
They just bought the brand.
They bought the brand and then they tried to make with our designs under their tooling and it wasn't as good and but I think they found out this is a pain in the ass. Right. They were doing torsion boxes though with their skis. Yeah. And they always kind of have done that. Pretty nice setup.
So it ended up going to K2 and K2's kind of held on to it since. It kind of came back once or twice in the.
Well, they kept building, and they made some decent stuff. You know, I mean, they actually did a good job at it. And I worked for them as a consultant for a couple years. I can't say that they really wanted any help. Yeah. You know, so I just kind of was like, okay, fine, I'll just surf. You know, and just hung out and collected some money and whatever. And then I started kind of moving off of my career somewhere else.
So what's your career?
But I do contracting, like specialty piping, kind of commercial, like boring, tunneling, kind of in that market.
Like in Orange County.
Down in Orange County.
Like municipal work?
Yeah.
That's sick. Yeah. I got a buddy who does that up here. It's
really?
Pretty rad shit.
Yeah. So it's pretty fun. It's cool. And it's, then I kind of invented some little product and manufacture some other pipe fusion stuff. Sick. It's just so that keeps me busy and
so you're basically just a rich guy now who goes to trips to a place like Baldface and go shredding for fun.
That's what it takes. You got to be rich to come here.
You got to lose a shit ton of money.
So I mean, it's not really that exciting. The downfall is not that exciting. We went down with the ship and we tried to just hold on.
Yeah.
You know. Well. So, and it's just a matter of not reacting and not reacting fast enough.
Right. And growing real big and kind of like, oh God, how do I turn the ship? You know?
Yeah. Well, and becoming too big for your britches. Yeah. And then
buying West Beach, doing these things.
Yeah. But then Chip Wilson went off and created Lululemon after that. So
and there's a little rumor around that West Beach is coming back around.
Yeah?
Little talk of that right now.
Oh wow.
There's also a little talk that Morrow might be coming back around pretty soon. You don't know.
I don't know.
Well, we'll see. All right, well, it's dinner time. And I do want to keep it quick. That is such a fucking cool story. I'm like so glad I got to nail you down for this. We had our little foo-foo, non-alcoholic, delicious cocktails. You can have a big drink now. Yeah. Your contribution to snowboarding is significant. Like when you are at Bachelor or you're at Hood, like are people like, do they know who you are when you're in the lift line? Or are people ever just like, holy shit, Rob Morrow? Because like to me, you're kind of a big fucking deal, you know? You're like your face is on the Mount Rushmore of all the old snowboard heads, you know, for sure. Yeah. So I hope you know how much, like it's not forgotten. And I'm going to do my best to make sure that, with my podcast here, because everybody's going to listen to this.
Cool.
But like,
I don't want to be famous, but
yeah, but nice fucking work.
Dude.
You followed something fucking cool. Yeah. You created something. And there's a lot of people that just like latch on to other people's shit.
Yeah.
And you fucking did it. You created it and you wrote it all the way out and you reinvented yourself and you surfing, snowboarding, big smile on your face.
It's good times. And now I just come up here all the time.
Awesome.
That's my days.
All right, well,
thanks.
Episode 4 with the rave.
Let's do it.
Nice lighting. Chip, we're done. Thanks. Thanks, Chip.
Guys.
Thank you. It was really great.